You guys doing all right? Hopefully so. Hopefully you guys got your water and everything that you all need. I'm talking about I'm gonna run inside, get some water, make sure you hydrated, all that great stuff. We're gonna be a little shorter today because it's Shabbat, it's Saturday. You know, at least it's Shabbat for our land of our captivity, Pete. We're gonna make sure that we go into where we need to be. Praise God. So we're finishing up our Holy Day series today as well. And if you need to, please, man, please, sir, feel free to go ahead and well, be ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the last official day of the Holy Day series, even though then we'll just be preaching and stuff for October 6th to the 13th. But today will be the last day for our Holy Day series. Hold on one second. Okay. So as we're getting ready for that, we hope that you guys are ready for some Q&A tomorrow. Q&A tomorrow will be focused in. It's not a normal Q&A. However, Holy Spirit has led to where we're going to do Q&A, but we're going to be asking persons to have questions, comments, or concerns specifically for the Holy Day series. If we don't have enough of them, then we'll start to try and trickle down into the other stuff, right? But hopefully we'll have plenty of persons asking questions about the Holy Day series or different things that you've heard, different things. Why is this? Why is that? Etc. Etc. Why do you call this this? Why do you call this that? How do we get ready? All those different things or whatever. I'm gonna try to have the dates tomorrow too. It just depends on how much time I have. I'm extremely busy. Real talk. This is like this season. Once we start getting closer to like Feast of Trumpets, which was this year, September 22nd, pretty much I'm all over the place every day. So, but hopefully I'll be able to do something as simple as just make sure I remember to set aside the dates for next year so that when we're talking about them, you guys can have them as a bonus. And you guys can be prepared if you're trying to make sure you get stuff together for next year. Alrighty. But I will be back. I'm going to go grab some water. And then we shall get started. Need more persons to help? Yeah, different things like that as well, for sure. As we're growing and things of that nature. But yeah, so let me go ahead. I'm going to go grab something to drink real quick. Please give me like a minute, hopefully. No more than that. And we shall be started. Praise God. Thank you all for your patience. All right, so I'm going to go grab my drink. And we shall get started. Okay, sorry it took a little longer than a minute. I apologize. Have y'all sitting here looking at nothing? All right, I apologize. My fault. Prayerfully, I won't do that to y'all anymore. I shouldn't. Had to make sure we had some water going on. So, Kedah, thank you for your patience. I apologize about that. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started. All right. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahavah's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority to portray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Aman. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Anai, servants of Christ, Shalom. Hello, everybody. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Shabbat Shalom. It is Shabbat today, so we're thankful and grateful for another opportunity. Shabbat as far as the Gregorian calendar, but Shabbat nonetheless. And so we shall treat it as such. We're getting ready for in a couple of days to start the Feast of Tabernacles on Monday evening. And when we start the Feast of Tabernacles on Monday evening, we're excited because that will be convocation for us. So we're thankful and grateful for another opportunity to be before you guys one more again. Amen. So thank you for being with us, spending some time with us. Very much so appreciate you, and we're thankful for what the Most High is doing in your life on today. We hope that you guys who are traveling to be here, or well, I'm not quite there, but we'll be back at the area probably by this evening. Maybe, hopefully the men's meeting will be done from down there, and maybe we'll even do a little bit of Patreon stuff while we're down there, depending on what's going on. But when you see us tomorrow, for the live session, when you see us on Monday, in the live session for the Rising, you should be seeing us at the park, at the place, and we'll use it as a testing for our signal and all that great stuff. Prayerfully, all that stuff will work 100% fine. Mine. I'm thankful to you guys for supporting. Thank you for being in this moment. It is the 5 to 10th program and stuff tomorrow, by the way. For the rest of the day, right after this, at 10 a.m. New York time, Elder Nice will be giving us a word on the podcast. At 11 a.m. New York time, there'll be Shabbat school for the babies. And prayerfully, as we were saying, we'll be able to do something with the brothers at 7 p.m. New York time later for the men's meeting. And thank you all again for being on with us. We appreciate you so very, 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 very much. All right. But Shabbat Shalom to all. Thank you so much. Hopefully all is well. Even if it might be late, you might get to you a couple days later, whatever, don't forget. Or even if you get one later after the fact, if you want to support Brother Jermaine and have something that kind of is a mark of what we're doing here. He has created church for us just for Feast of Tabernacles. So remember, well, now they come in different colors as well. At first they were mainly in white. They were also in orange, the orange ones, the letters glow in the dark. But he since has other ones as well. Also has some shorts that have tassels on them that are fire, as far as I'm concerned. But different things that he's always doing as far as stuff like that. But he has stuff specifically for us to commemorate Feast of Tabernacles. So if you like one, make sure you reach out to him as well. Other than that, let's go ahead and get it. Saturday, we do have a shorter amount of time because of the podcast. We're gonna make sure Elder Anais has her time and Elder Alma can have her time. So let's go ahead and get it. All right, but so we'll say our Bible pledge real quick. This will be the last official word for this series that we've been doing for quite some time now. We're finishing up through tomorrow. Tomorrow, have your questions ready for Holy Day specifically, Holy Day Q&A, Holy Day questions. We're gonna focus on those. If we happen to have more time or stuff like that after the fact, we'll try to focus on the other ones, but we're going to be focused on the Holy Day questions. Also, somebody was on yesterday. I forget the sister's name. I can't recall it at the top at this moment, but you had asked yesterday about specific information as far as the holy days and where specifically we would be at, seeming like you would like to be in attendance and get a spot. So there's still room available if you would like to be able to get a spot. I DM'd you last night. It was kind of late, so you might not have seen it, but I did, in fact, reach out to you, and I'll double check on that again. But please look at that. I'll try to announce that again just in case you're not on now, whoever it was. All right, so let's go ahead and get ready to do our Bible pledge. If you're able to rise to your feet, and reverence Yahavah's word, or however you're able to reverence the word of Yah. We're going to get ready to say our Bible pledge, so thank you so much for doing so if you can. If you can't, cannot, thank you for listening in. We still appreciate you no matter what. How's everybody doing? Let's say shalom. How you doing, Brother Keith, Levi King, Donna, Mignon, Nicholas, Alton, Craig, Callum, Honesty, Sister Barbara. Somebody got to co-productions already. Okay, they said something crazy. Is it GLXYY Lena's? They said something crazy. Thank you, moderators, for being on it. How you doing, Sister Shirley? And if the boys are watching, I don't know if Kota and Nolan are watching. Shalom, peace, brothers. How's everybody doing on all the different platforms? We appreciate you so very much. If you're on this platform I'm pointing at right now, it's hard to see what's going on. So, okay, if you're on this platform, welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, how you doing? Is it ABSVN Bloody? Thanks for being on, Shalom. Thanks for being on with us. How you doing, James? Davey, thanks for the love. How you doing, Double OG, Triple OG? Sister Jennifer, by the way, Sister Jennifer, if I'm not mistaken, right? Happy Born Day. Yam Yasalam to you on these October Born Days. Right, very close to my own. My own is coming up on Mondays. Brother Dennis and I, we share Born Day as well. So praise Yah for that, right? By the way, Sister Mignon, I meant to get you that information. I just literally found out about, if I'm correct about Sister Jennifer, I think I just found out earlier, like early this rising. But we'll try to get some stuff where we'll be better, especially going into the next year. Maybe we can have some conversations about that so we can get better at that. Hey, that's my fault. How you doing, SAYD? Said, is it? Said? How you doing, Judy? Wagwan Audrey? Makayanga? Thanks for being on. Is it Vicky? Vicky, Sweet Smoke, One Who Whispers. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How you doing? SH Money? Josephine, Loyalty, KJ, Sister Nakia, Mez, J's 411, Carla Arthurs, Amana, Tommy, Nguyen Vantien, hopefully I'm saying that right, Nini, Darius, Shalom, Brother Darius, Shalom, peace, everybody, Shabbat Shalom to all. Is it Diva D, Brina, Just Freddy, Jerome, Prophet's Vision, Stay Little, Mo, Pride Poor, Champions, Raphael, Jr. And if I miss anybody, please charge it to my head and not to my heart. It is not my intention to miss anybody. How you doing, Bush? Thanks for being part of the community. James, I think I might have missed earlier. Shabbat Shalom or Shabbat Shalom. How you doing? All right. We appreciate you all. How you doing, Brother Alton? Sister Beverly, how you doing? Sister Beverly, Grand Rising to you. Peace, peace, peace. All righty, let's go ahead and get started. Person, by the way, we might have to get you back in the mix. Person was talking about how your product is fire. The other day when we were talking about products, so we need to we got some new persons coming in and growing and stuff. We need to make sure that they can get in there and support what you're doing around the world. Praise Yah. All righty, and I need to get some myself. It's been a minute. All right. So yeah, but we thank everybody. Thank you for all the help to the moderators, ministerial staff, SOC, Lottie, Diane, everybody. Once again, we give our praise and honor to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma. Let's get into this word, right before it becomes too late. I love talking to y'all. This is if y'all don't know, we know each other. We love each other. This is not just virtual. It's reality. So when I be talking to these persons, you know, we break bread. We've literally met up. Some of us we've met multiple times. We have persons that live near us and do Bible study and stuff like that together and stuff. So if I'm not careful, I'll be sitting here talking all day. So we're gonna go ahead and get right in it. All right. Thank y'all for being on. We appreciate you. You can just put how you doing, Brother Jermaine? Once again, if you'd like a shirt from Brother Jermaine, get your shirt real quick. You can get it at germjohnsoninsurance@gmail.com. Not G, but Germ with a J. Germ, Jerm, Johnson, JOHNSON, Insurance, INSURANCE, germjohnsoninsurance@gmail.com. How you doing, Sister Deborah? Shalom, shalom, peace. How you doing, Brother Rodney? All right, let's go ahead and do our Bible pledge. You can put your right hand in the air and just repeat after me. This is my Bible. This is my sword. In this will I trust. For Yahavah is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard. For this is my Bible. And this is Yah's word. Hashem Yahavah. Aman. Yahavah Shem, his name, his authority. Let it be done unto us. You may be seated to go back to what you were doing in the presence of the Most High. Once again, Yam Yasalab, Sister Jennifer. Hopefully you enjoy your day. Thank you for spending your day with us. We appreciate you so very much. Alrighty, and we'll try to post that up on in our Facebook group as well, so everybody can make sure that they show you love there and stuff as well. But we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Very faithful person, always on with us, and we appreciate all that you do in front of the scenes, behind the scenes, and just being a vessel for the Most High. Alrighty. So, praise Yah. Today, we're going to speak on this is our inheritance. This is our inheritance. Right? This is our inheritance? I believe something close to that. This is our inheritance. This is what you have inherited, right? If it doesn't say that, it's pretty close to that. I apologize. I know we got multiple platforms. I might have wrote the theme a little different depending on what platform you're on. But this is basically we're talking about that this is our inheritance. Really, this is our culture. This is our inheritance. This is what we've been commanded. This is bringing us back to who we have been before the foundations of the world. This is our inheritance, and we're going to treat our inheritance as if it's something that belongs to us. It's something that should be guarded, and it's something that is a blessing. Right? This is our inheritance. Right? How you doing, Aunt Mary? This is our inheritance. Right? This is something that we have been given, right? As kingdom sovereigns. We were missing this, and it made life a lot more difficult for us. But this is our inheritance. This is what Yahavah has given us, and this is what he's been trying to call us back to. In this series, we have talked about the different holy days. We talked about the offshoots of the holy days. We talked about why persons do things in different ways. And by the way, once again, as a reminder, we will do Q&A tomorrow, specifically 2 holy days, right? To end this dynamic series that Rav HaKodesh has led us in, right? But this is our inheritance. These holy days, and how you doing, Mr. BR? Thanks for being part of the community. This is not random. This is not something that we're doing just to stick out. This is biblical reference point, and this is something that's inheritance because, as we've talked about, the Terach, or the guide, or the doctrine, or the instructions, or the word, the Zarah, the commandments, the law, right, is not for everybody. What we call the Bible, even, right, which is a version of the original scrolls, right? This is not for everybody. And we stand 10 toes down on that. We must be honest about that. This is not for everybody. The Bible is not written for everybody, right? This is an inheritance to whom? To those who are believers, to those that are family, for those that are kingdom, for those that follow the will of Yah, for those that will be grafted in, for those that are not double-minded, who do not have dual citizenship. Hello, Ivan. I'm not a baby goat, and I'm not your son, so you got to do better than that. If that's a veiled reference to go back to Africa or whatever, I'm actually part native, and even as somebody who you would call African, our people were here way before your people, if that's what we're doing. But I've gone past your simple racial epithets and stuff, and I'm actually internationality. So the world belongs to the Most High anyways. And so there's nothing you can do about my being anywhere, whether I belong there in your regard or I'm an ambassador as far as the Most High says. But thank you, moderators, for dealing with that person. How you doing, Patrice? Thanks for being part of the community. This is why I say this is our inheritance. That person who just came on is probably a Christian nationalist, just by what his stuff said. And I'm gonna leave it there. I'm not gonna keep going back and forth. I can't, because thank you, moderators, you got rid of the person with the racial stuff coming on early. That's strong. It's grown. Right? But this is our inheritance. And persons will try to get you off, and that's a great example of it. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for even allowing that. That's a great example of persons who will try to get you away from what belongs to you. There's a fight, whether it be with Christianity, there's a fight, whether it be with Judaism, right? And not all, I know there's persons in Messianic Jews and this and that, and persons who are trying. I get it. I'm just saying, overall, your fight, according to the word, is Balaam doctrine. It's one of the biggest things that we fight against. It's coming in hot, right? How you doing, Sister Kimberly? right? And if Brother Marcus is here, me and anybody else in the family, MJ and others are here, and thank you for being on, right? This is part of the fight. Part of the fight is that we're fighting persons who say that we have no inheritance, because when you have no culture, so they say, when they say you have nothing to look at, when they say that you should do things in their regard and be happy and thankful and grateful that we allow you to do whatever we allow you to do, then that means that they try to say you have nothing to inherit, right? I know this is a little off script, but you can't, how if you don't find any value in Imhotep, why would you inherit what he said or what he's done? You'll put Sir Isaac Newton in place and say, let's worship him. But Sir Isaac Newton mentions that he had to go back and look at Greeks, and the Greeks said that they had to go back and look and get their stuff from Kush and from Kemet. Brother Richard should be fine. What did he say? I think Brother Richard, that's Bruder Richard, he's fine. I'm pretty sure. If he says something that's crazy, I'll deal with it. But I don't think he. Right, Bruder Richard should be fine. Hold on 1 second. Let's get him. I don't know what happened there. I think we accidentally got you, or somebody got you by accident. Let's make sure we. Sorry, you guys. Yeah, brother Richard is okay. All right. Sorry about that. I think we accidentally got you on there. All right, but yeah, welcome everybody. How you doing, King D252? Everybody on all the platforms, we appreciate you. Right, person's coming in so spicy, the moderators going to work. Praise y'all. Right, but we have to make it a point to realize that inheritance is key. See, this is something that's been given to you as an inheritance, and here's the deal: who gave you the inheritance? Right? This is key. Who gave you the inheritance? Right? Quick question. Who's giving us the inheritance? Who commanded the holy day? Yah, right? The Most High Yah. The Most High, right? So if he's given it to his children, right? Then who is it for? How you doing, Mindful Moments? Right? It's for his children, right? Right? Banat Yahavah, right? Who are Banat Yahavah, right? So if he's been given it to us, if it's been given to his children, okay? If it's been given to his children, if it's been given to him, it's his to give to whom he claims, and the children don't accept it, then is the inherited, right? Whoever accepts the inheritance, they'll do the best they can, but they're not going to be able to do what it's supposed to be done, right? Do with it what's supposed to be done. So we, as the children of Yahavah, are important. Remember, Isaiah chapter 53, verse 1, repeated in Romans chapter 10, verse 16, who shall believe our report? Right? Who shall believe our report? I guess you just be able to go to certain stores and buy them. African boutiques or things of that nature. How you doing, Sister Deborah? Right? Who shall believe our report? And persons don't like this, but this is not everybody's to report, because not everybody is part of this family. We talked about this in the Roman Road piece a couple days ago on our live session, right? When you look at Romans chapter 3, verse 1 and 2, if you would like to go there, I'm just going to say it off the top of my head, so I might differ on a couple words here or there, especially because they use words like oracles and God and stuff, which have been changed, right? But we're going to go back real quick, just kind of review a little bit of that, just to show you that what we're talking about is extremely important, because as inclusive as we should be with the word, we're inclusive to those that are going to be faithful, right? That also means that we are exclusive to those who are not faithful. Or put it like this: as inclusive as we are with the word, we are very inclusive with those who will keep it holy. For those who are coming in to try and desecrate what Yah has, we must exclude them. It hurts person's feelings when you talk like that. A person think that we're monstrous because, everything's supposed to be inclusive. But I'm going to be honest with you, my brother, my sister, right? That's part of our problem in the story of our diaspora, whether you're talking about the Negro, whether you're talking about the Israelite, whether you're talking about the Hebrew, whether you're talking about the African, the so-called African American, the Native, the Choctaw, the Iroquois, the Khalifa, the Wampanoag, the list goes on and on. The so-called Inca, the so-called Aztec, etc. Right? We have been so inclusive, right? Because somebody does anything or we just go, well, just because they're a human being. Yes, because you're a human being, I should treat you with certain respect. But I don't automatically assume. Like, even a lot of us allow persons in just because you're black, right? Just forgetting that not all skin folk is kinfolk. That's how you have the Black Panther Party get taken down so easily, or you have the Crips and the Blood, which were positive role models and were there to protect us, have now become the very things that a lot of us are afraid to be around, right? And if they're doing anything for the community, they get so-called money. They get so-called what they owe. They go to the rappers that come in town, or the musicians that come in town, and they say, hey, we're gonna collect our fee from you, but then they don't give it to the community. They say, we're giving it for the community because you can't come through here and not come through us, and then they just start using it. They basically become mob bosses, right? And so persons have changed this to where we just assume anybody should be included, forgetting that there are rules and regulations and standards for anybody, especially if you're supposed to be creating, or not even creating, you're supposed to be getting back to becoming a nation like you were always supposed to. You're a royal priesthood, a chosen generation, right? A peculiar people. People means nation, by the way. And you're also what? A holy nation to show forth the praises. But we don't worry about being a nation or nationality, or even being private, separate from the business, being in the system but not of it, being private or separate from the beast, rather. We're so inclusive that now Yah is having to exclude us because we're trying to bring the world. We've brought so much world, included so much world in the pulpit, including so much world in the dance, including so much world in our clothing, including so much world in the doctrine now, that now we're a far cry from what Yah said in his word. And it's time for us to go back so that the hearts of the children can return to the sources, to the fathers, and the hearts of the fathers can return to the children, lest Yah continues to smite our land with a curse. That's Malachi chapter 4, verse 6. That's right before you go. Well, many of you in your Bible, that's not actually where it's supposed to go, but many of you in Bible, that's right before you go to Matthew chapter 1 and start talking about the lineage of the Messiah. Before you start talking about the Messiah coming, the hearts of the fathers have to return to the children. And if you read Malachi, Malachi is actually called, according to Malachi 1:1, the name of the scroll is actually the burden of the word of Yahavah to Israel. And Israel has gotten out of pocket. And Israel, therefore, anybody being grafted into the truth, because Israel, according to Genesis 28, is where heaven meets earth. So if you say that the kingdom of heaven is in you, then that's you being earth and heaven meeting together. That's what makes you Yahavah, right? In a broader sense. And that means that you have a responsibility to uphold the word, the law, the statutes, the commandments, the principles, including even our Messiah, who said you should do so in Matthew chapter 5, verses 10 through 12, and Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20, and Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. Maybe those will pop up. But I give that to you one more again, just in case you go back and listen to the recording, or just in case you're going to try to write this down, or just in case you might be recording it while I'm saying it. Matthew chapter 5, verses 10 through 12. Matthew chapter 5, verses 17 through 20. Matthew chapter 7, verse 12. Right? These are three spots in the Sermon on the Mount where Messiah is speaking. But really, the whole Sermon on the Mount deals with law. Who is the Messiah? The Messiah, Mashachi. Some people call him Yeshua HaMashiach. Some people call him Yahavah, right? I'm not Yahushua. I'm not going to get into the dialect piece, but he is Bar Yahavah, right? He is has the DNA of Israel, the bloodline, the only one to have the actual bloodline or seed of the Father, right? He is this Bit Adam. He is the second. Bit Ba'at Adam. He is the second Adam. He is Ba'at Yehashua. He is the second Yehashua, or what many of you would call Joshua. He has the same name as Joshua, son of Nun, who comes after Moses. And just like Moses could follow the law and did everything, but then sinned, and his sin caused it to where he could not lead us into Canaan. Here comes the second Joshua, who our sin can't get us to the promised land like it needs to, and we can't have Holy Spirit come back. He comes and follows all the law, continues with the law, and then because he follows all the law, now we have access to Holy Spirit again. Right? is what we would say. In somebody would call it dialect, we would say it's the origin, the original. But either way, right? I don't fight because that's a whole big thing on people can't listen to each other because they speak a different dialect, and I'm not gonna fight that ever really, but definitely not today. How you doing, No Flex Zone? Thanks for being on, and thanks for the question, Mr. Hunter. So in Romans chapter 3, verse 1 and 2. Romans chapter 3, verse 1 and 2, it asks a question. Paul asks two questions. He says, is there any advantage to being Yahavah, or some of you would say Yehudi, or right, or some of you would say Judah, right? He says, is there any advantage of being Judah, of being a Jew? And at this time, it would be even more specific. Well, really, he's talking about all of Israel, but if you want to get specific, he's talking about at least Judah, those who praise, those who are on the throne. Talking about Levi, those who are the priests, and to make sure, and are specifically supposed to make sure that they have no other responsibility other than making sure that Israel remains clean, especially in sacrifice, but in all areas, right? And you're talking about Benjamin, those who are frontline warriors, bold, right? He said Rome is the Vatican. Okay. I don't know, I agree. I'm focused on something else, so I'm not going to necessarily go there. But yeah, we've talked about the Rome, and if you know iron mixed with clay, and Christianity, and Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, Daniel chapter 11, et cetera, right? We got Romans, or Revelation, even the book of Romans. We talk about that. That's not an issue for us, right? But that being said, so focusing on what I'm focusing on. No shade, just, I got to focus today because I have a little bit of time in comparison to what I normally have. Romans chapter 3, verse 1. Paul asks two questions. First question, he says, is there an advantage to being a Jew or being Avda or being Israel? Okay, so cool. So if that's going to be your thing, okay, I guess you're just going to be arguing with yourself, Mr. Hunter. Once again, I said we've addressed those things. If you're talking about the doctrine that comes out of Rome, I'm not a Christian. I'm not one where the iron mixes with clay. I'm not one of the people where the 2 feet are there on the statue. I'm not one who's into the 7th head of the beast, right? There are others that are, right? Or the 6th head of the beast, excuse me. There are others that are, right? But not I. And even if we know when these items were actually written, they were written way before, right? There was a such thing as Christianity. Before there was such thing as the Vatican. Before there was a such thing as Madonna and Christ Child, which they changed from Mariam, or who you call Mary, and Christ Child, right? Before they made Apollos, Christ, and all that. So if that's your focus, once again, thank you for trying to inform. You said I'm quoting a Christian book, whether I'm a Christian or not. Okay, I'm not. But thank you so much. If you think that Christianity existed before what I'm saying, then you just don't know even simple timelines as far as going on. Even persons who are atheists and agnostic would acknowledge that this was not written by Christians. Christians have taken this and changed it, and even the original language has changed. Now, if you're going to talk about the law first mentioned, maybe you should go off of that rather than continuing to tell me about something that has nothing to do with my culture. But I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Yeah, have a great day. You said Christ Child, it was ISIS and her son. No, so somebody pretended. Okay, I'm gonna leave it alone. Last thing I'm saying, I'm muting you, by the way, but I'll just go ahead. You're getting closer. You're getting warmer, but you're still not around. All right. Last thing I'm gonna say, I don't have time. It's not Q&A, and you don't even really know how to debate or treat people properly because you can't even say shalom, peace, hello, welcome, salutations, none of that, right? So I'm not gonna give you any more time, but let me just do this last thing for you so you can go ahead and go about your way, right? And I can try to be as nice as I can. When persons be like, moderators, y'all be this and that, or Kofi, you be quick. I be trying to be patient, right? And the persons, keep pulling. But watch this. You ready? You're right about Ishtar, Samarias. And she had a son, right? And she was married to Cush. And by the way, you're also using biblical reference point to talk about that, right? But let's just go ahead and do this. Yes, Samarias, who called herself Ishtar, got with her own son, left Cush when he got defeated, got with her own son, Nimrod. Nimrod then dies. She continues to be promiscuous. She has relations and gets pregnant. She lies and tells everybody that her son, the S-O-N, is the S-U-N, right? Nimrod and his rays have somehow impregnated her, after his death. And she came from the moon in an egg. That's where you get the whole moon, and the bunny comes from her fertility, right? Her being depicted from many places as having many breasts, like rabbits have many paps, right? And she says this son in particular that she's impregnated with is Tammuz, and he is the chosen son who died already, right? He didn't even make it to adulthood. He died in a boring accident. So you're close, and you're getting closer, but that's somebody saying that they want their son to be the Christ. But the reality is that many knew that that was a lie. And if you're Shemitic, you knew that that was a lie, and you stayed away from it, and you fought against Nimrod and them, to the point to where even somebody who's trying to keep the same name and hold the same name later on is around. When you get to when you get to Jacob and Esau actually is the one who takes the life of Nimrod, right? And then because of all the stuff that comes with it and things of that nature, he gets frustrated, and that's one of the reasons why he's tired. And he's like, I don't even want this anymore, and he gives up his birthright. So you're getting closer, right? But they used to say close but no cigar. You're getting closer, right? But I can't rock with you at the end. You're getting closer though, but you're challenging, and you won't listen long enough to actually see, does this person actually know what I'm talking about? So you know a lot more than many, but you're still going away from truth, right? Challenging just for the sake of challenging doesn't help anybody. So let me get back on track. I'm sorry, everybody. I won't do that anymore today. See what I'm saying? When you start talking about your inheritance, somebody's always there to tell you why you shouldn't take what's yours. But how you doing? No Flex Zone, thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, Sister Shima? Lowen, everybody being on. Sister Greta, much love to everybody. Yep, different cultures, different ways of looking at stuff. How you doing? Right? Oh, happy Born Day to me. Thank you. Well, Born Day is on Monday, but thank you so much. I appreciate you. First day of Feast of Tabernacles is my Born Day, so thank you so much. But thank you for remembering. I appreciate you. Today is actually Sister Jennifer's Born Day, and Brother Dennis will have a Born Day on Monday with me as well. All of our other October Born Days, happy belated or happy early, or if it's your Born Day today, and I don't know. Thank you so much for being on with us. We appreciate you so very much. Thank you for the reposts, for the likes, for the shares, hitting the notification tab. Those who give any kind of donation, we appreciate you all. Shabbat Shalom. How you doing, CC Designs? Oh, yours is the 8th? That's right. I think you told me that. I will try to remember that. Right? That's Wednesday. Right? Yours is on Tuesday. Okay. All right, the 7th. so Yam Salat to all. All right. Okay. I'm going to get back to the word. Right? I'm going to get back to the word. So where were we at? Romans chapter 3, verse 1. I think I said this like 3 times. Let me try and get back to it. Romans chapter 3, verse 1. So Paul asked a question. He says, is there any advantage to what you inherit? Or is there any inheritance? Is there any advantage to being Jew or Judah? Romans chapter, and then the second question he asked in Romans 3:1 is he says, and is there any profit in circumcision? That means in following the law. His response is yes, much in every way. Yes, in much every way. Why? Yea, yes, much in every way, because we have had the laws and the prophets to go off of. It says something about the oracles of God, but we don't have oracles, right? That's somebody in Greek attempting to try and talk to you about prophets. Okay, October 1st, happy belated, right? So, how you doing, TikTok? Is it Taylor? So, we have an advantage because we have an inheritance. See, for many, the law is something that they can dismiss easily because it's not something that is for their family. It's not their inheritance. But for us, this completes a picture of who we are. Right? This completes a picture of who we are. A lot of persons who don't know who we are, right? A lot of persons who don't know who they are. A lot of persons don't even know who a Negro is and think that Negro means black. But if you go to Spain, they don't say yourself. If you were to say the color of that person, you wouldn't say Negro. You would say Moreno. Right? Right? But what is it? But you don't know the original Negro. That the original Negro was somebody who was considered to be somebody who followed the Torah, right? Somebody who was swarthy, See, Negro is a nationality. They had you tricked into believing that Negro is a color. That's why when you read Black's Law Dictionary, those of you know about Black's Law Dictionary, you have to be careful because in court you should never call yourself a Negro, because in the United States they try to say that the Negro is an artificial person because they don't recognize your nationality. Which is one of the reasons why when we tried to use the term Negro and trying to talk about being Israelites, when we were talking about reparations in the late 1800s and the early 1900s, that they went ahead and they dismissed it because they said they would not qualify us. As a matter of fact, they qualify us as slaves. If you remember Christopher Columbus, when he sailed the ocean blue in 1492, before that in 1491, all right, the last great Moorish king was defeated, and they left. And when Spain became the country, or at least the shape of the country that you know it today, they went to the Pope and they asked permission, could they go look for Negro slaves, which they had already started making in Spain and Portugal and other places in Europe, right? Could they go look for them? And when the Pope said, yes, you can go look for them, right, who are Israelites, they forced all of the ones that they found into Roman Catholicism, into Christianity, right? And then they said anybody who says that they're a Negro, they made it against the law. And that, by the time you hit 1550, it became against the law that anybody would say a Negro, call somebody Yehudi or Yahavah or Judah. If you did so, right, if somebody did so, they could be punished by death. And if somebody saw a so-called person who said that they were Judah or Yehudi or Yahavah or Judah or Negro, if you saw somebody, you were allowed by law to slash that person in the face. You were allowed by law. All of them were enslaved. All of them had their inheritance taken. And then what starts to happen after that? While you're taking those persons' names away and you're forfeiting their lands and you're making them slaves and you're doing so all around the world, as you're doing that, you're making it illegal for them to ever have any tie to their inheritance, or making it illegal for anybody to teach them that they should have any tie to their inheritance. Sounds familiar today. Isn't it kind of becoming illegal to tell persons anything about Amendments 12 through the rest? Whatever it is, forgive me. I know it's, 30 something? Forgive me, I should know the number. I don't. Off the top of my head, I don't. I'll be honest with you. But I know that they only letting you learn your children now with that Freedom Bible in certain places, right? And they only learn in Amendments 1 through 11. Why is that? Because that makes it harder for them to figure out who was done wrong, why they were done wrong, and what is their inheritance. This is the enemy's plan, above all. Shabbat Shalom to you, Sister Allison. Shabbat Shalom to everybody coming in. Thank you for joining us on all platforms. I'm sorry, Sister Michelle, I missed you. Shabbat Shalom to you, Grand Rising. How you doing, Ricky? Thanks for being on. How you doing, Big Roy? Thank y'all for the love. You said the true bride will rejoice when Babylon falls, but the wicked will mourn. How you doing, K777? Thanks for being part of the community. Appreciate you. So, and all these different things, nobody wants to have that conversation. Is it Adrian? Adrian Garza? Is it? Adrian? I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Please forgive me. Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, Shelly? DC Loves, or Doc Love, sorry. Doc Love. I don't know how to say the name. Please forgive me. How you doing, Doc? Thanks for being on, right? We don't want to have honest dialogue. That you're taking away, when you take away their story, not his story. His story is to make sure that he is put where he needs to be. But when you take away the story, our story, what happens is now you're getting into a place to where you're furthering yourself from what is yours. How you doing, Owen? Thanks for being part of the community. Central Maine in the house? Okay. We don't get as many persons from Maine as we used to, but we've been growing back again, so we're thankful and grateful to see somebody up in there. How you doing? Right? Hopefully the weather's not, I don't know what the weather is in Maine right now, but I know we're probably getting ready to cook something crazy. Right? And thank y'all for the love once again. So you got to realize, when it comes to this, that persons are trying their best to get you to stay away from what is your inheritance. If you don't inherit what's yours, somebody else can. Right? Right? What is an American? By law, you know that the original American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. When somebody else comes and colonizes the Americas, it's still not theirs. It is a colony of theirs. When they had a fight amongst themselves, which means that Europeans in a colonized region that's not theirs but belongs to someone else, but they've taken ownership over these people, The Europeans said, I will say, over here got mad at the persons over there because the ones over here who have been protecting them after the 7 Years' War and some other stuff ran out of money and said, hey, we need you to pay taxes for the first time in your history, and they got upset, right? And they fought each other. That was their, see, you call it a Revolutionary War, but that was their civil war. That was their countrymen against countrymen, right? George Washington, what is an Englishman? John Adams is an Englishman. Thomas Jefferson is an Englishman, right? Madison is an Englishman. Monroe is an Englishman. Adams II, right? John Quincy Adams is an Englishman. Andrew Jackson is an Englishman, right? Van Buren is, actually he was a Dutch, excuse me. He was Dutchman, right? Pope is an Englishman. Only person, they are English. They're British. They're Eurocentric in their values. They have a Western sensibility. They have not left it alone. And many of them, by the way, I don't care what you want to try to change them into. Many of the persons that I just mentioned, they're not even Christian. For the Christian nationalists, listening. But see, in order for the Christian nationalists even to be able to say that they should be inheriting something that was stolen, the Christian nationalist has to say, oh, wait a minute, no, they were Christians. This has always been a Christian nation. When Thomas Jefferson literally used to take pages out, not only like people did for a slave Bible, he also has something called a Jefferson Bible. In the Jefferson Bible, he literally took out all the stuff he didn't like about Christ and then left the other stuff in and said, this is what I think Christ should be and what he represents and what I've learned from him, and passed it on. And they still teach it and preach it. We've been going over it in our Patreon, right? In SOC University. We've been dealing with that, right? Where you said Thomas Jefferson in the Jefferson Bible. He literally took out a whole bunch of stuff he didn't like about the Messiah, and then he said, this is the ultimate way of looking at the Messiah for us. He colonized the Bible. And it's not even the Bible that's the original, right? It's a version of it, but he colonized the Bible and said this because he's not a Christian. But you know what? He has Christian ideals, because Christians mix iron with clay. If you don't know what iron and clay mixture is, right? Iron is supposed to be Rome, and clay is supposed to be those who are followers of the way. And how you doing, Jackie B? Thanks for being on part of the community. How you doing, Karen? Thanks for being part of the community. Thank y'all for the love, right? But we don't acknowledge this, and they keep changing this stuff up, right? Is it Lou Jackson? Thanks for being on. If I missed you, Jamie DeVerne earlier, by the way. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Thank you for being on. Appreciate you. Thank you, Brother Alton. Yeah, those who have ears to hear, hopefully they'll hear. How you doing, Rock Lot? Thanks for the love. How you doing, Word of Flesh? Thanks for being part of the community. Or Word to Flesh. I'll be honest, I was like, Word of Flesh? Word to Flesh, excuse me. Thanks for being part of the community. Okay, so, and all these things we don't want to be honest. So, guess what? The original American, by definition, by lawful definition, is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. How you doing, Tooth Black? That's what the original definition of an American is, a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. Matter of fact, even during slavery, there's a Roget's Thesaurus of 1834. If you were looking at the thesaurus and look up the term Negro, right? The term Negro, not only does it mean black, I know my Moorish brethren aren't going to like this, but this is the truth. Not only do you see that it's black, or some of my Moorish brethren, right, if you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, so you'll see that it's synonymous with black. You'll see that Negro is synonymous with African. You'll see that Negro is synonymous with African American or Afro American, which African American. No, not African American. I'm sorry, I'm missing one. It's synonymous with colored, and also then you'll get to a place where you'll see that it says that it's synonymous with the children of Israel, which means that in the 1800s, in the midst of chattel slavery, it was known who you were. Roget's Thesaurus, which person still bow today, right? Back then they were saying, in the most racist of racist places, they were telling you in the thesaurus that if you look at the term Negro, you got to also look at it as a synonym for the children of Israel. Because Negro was never originally a color. Negro was originally a nationality. Now you think of it as a color. Now there are nations that knew of themselves as black, right? And Negro has become black because if you know about history, world history, Negroes and Africans were searched for in Africa and Europe. They made a distinction. Africans were not considered to be Negroes, or not every African could be a Negro, and not every Negro could be considered to be an African. How you doing, Nate? Thanks for being part of the community. Decent, thanks for being part of the community. Vibe, Crafted, thanks for being part of the community, right? So a lot of persons miss that, where you think that Negro is a color, but Negro was originally a nationality, a nation. In that nation, were considered to be persons that listened to the Torah to figure out how to worship the Most High God. This is a fact, my brother, my sister. This is not made up. This is a fact. And it's a fact that when you study it and get the context, it becomes a contextual fact, which means it reveals truth. Excuse me. The Englishman got an Englishman over land that wasn't theirs. Ham, not the Negro, in Zondervan dictionary. Right. Okay, there you go. Another one. Thank you so much. I don't use that one enough. I need to be better at including that. Right? And how you doing, is it Margot? Margot Bird, Khan, Amma, right? So, and all these different things we have to recognize and realize and recall and remember that persons are taking your inheritance. These holy days are not, right? You got to, going back to the whole American thing, what made the so-called white man, so-called, well, not even so-called, the person who called himself European, person who called himself English, British, which by the way, the British or the Anglo-Saxon actually killed off the Anglos, right? They killed off the Anglos in order to get the country. It's actually Frenchmen, Normandy, person from Normandy, right? William, if you know about William the Conqueror, his name was originally William the Bastard, comes into England, wipes them out. How you doing, Bold Saber? Right, comes into England, wipes them out. Wipes out half of the population with some weird, foolish lie about being tied to the royal family over there, and wipes everybody out, then takes over, and then brings all of the French persons over. That's why you guys speak a lot of French, and you speak a lot of Anglo, a lot of Visigothic, a lot of Gullic language. The persons over there that you consider to be Anglo, the persons that were actually Anglo, that's where you get English kind of sort of Anglo, or kind of sort of Anglo-ish, right? English, that's where you get that term from, right? Those persons are not really Anglo. Nobody really even speaks outside of maybe a few persons who are masters of the language and really study the language to try and keep it alive. There's nobody really speaking Anglo. But you guys don't even realize, like, Germanic language, Anglo language, Gallic language, stuff like that is the language of the poor. When your Bible was written, if you're using the 15, or especially if you're using the 1611, but even if you're talking about 1560 version or 1590 version of the Bible, right? Those were rewritten versions. They're not even original, right? Even for the European, because the European was using French, right? Because they were Roman Catholics then. King Henry VIII, they're the Tudors. The Tudors were French, right? Coming from French ways, bringing Normandy and French sensibilities over to the Anglos, who weren't even there anymore. And you guys don't know. Like, for example, when you guys eat cow, why don't you say you eat cow? When you eat cow, you don't say you eat cow. What do you say you eat? If you're eating cow, what do you say you eat? You don't eat cow, you eat what? Starts with a B, right? You eat beef. Why do you eat beef? Because beef is buff. Buff is French. The persons who were in charge, right? When they had it, when they ate it, they ate what was in their language and their culture. The persons who produced it for them, right, couldn't afford to just eat animals like that, so they called them cow. Right? What is mutton? Somebody tell me what mutton is. If you get some mutton to eat, what is that? So I know somebody knows what mutton is, right? Mutton is sheep, or can be considered to be goat as well, true, right? But usually going to be sheep or lamb, right? But you call it sheep. Why? Because sheep are alive, and persons that can't afford to off their own sheep would never eat their sheep. They're too poor to do so. They need this. They need food. Maybe they'll use it for food at some point, but they need like clothing and all types of stuff. And maybe somebody will buy the sheep or whatever. So they can't afford to just off a sheep. But a person that can afford not only to off sheep, but can afford to eat the sheep, right? It's mutton or mutton, right? That's why you call it that, because the persons who have power are the persons that you're learning from. So when you read the Bible in English, English was the language of the poor. It's not until King James, I'm sorry, not King James, sorry, King Henry VIII decides that he wants to go ahead and change stuff up, and he wants to go ahead and have as many women as he wants, and he wants to off his wives, and he wants to do that, and he's actually going crazy, and he's starting to stink and smell because he's like decaying. He's not there. He's not all the way there. He's literally decomposing on the throne, right? But he decides, you know what? I'm done with y'all. I'm done with the Roman Catholic Church, and I'm going to separate. There's this movement going on called the Protestant movement. He says, I'm going to take over that, and he becomes the Pope of the Protestants. If you're Protestant, he is, right? Whoever the King of England is your Pope. No shade. I'm just telling you the truth, right? If you're a Protestant, right? You're a Protestant because King Henry VIII left Roman Catholicism, took a little movement that they didn't even like, made it his own, and then he started writing the word instead of in Latin and Greek. They started writing the word in English, basically as a FU to the Pope, because it was so scandalous. Why would you say the Bible in English? You would never say it in English. That's the language of the poor. The poor, even though the poor will be with you always, and blessed are the poor in spirit. But as far as they were concerned, you would never put the Bible in there, because the Bible is supposed to be for us, for the rich persons. We're always true. I'm the king. I'm so-called God in the flesh, or his representation, ordained by him. Right? That's why you have it in English. So in 1560, you get a Bible that basically is the result of them changing it up to say to the Roman Catholic Church, yeah, we're done with y'all. And then you get another one in 1590. And then King James, who also was somebody who was crazy, right? Even though he was swarthy, right? But even in that, somebody who was crazy and who was falling apart and was dying and was kind of crazy and stuff too, he commissions what's called the King James Version, which I'll admit is one of the best versions you can read in English for sure. The original. Right? Even some of the other ones, but the original especially. Would that be right? Hi, True King Visuals. I don't even understand what that question has to do with what I'm talking about today. We've had enough trolling today, right? But I'm saying all that to finish up and say, right, that this stuff has changed all the way. The same way that, guess what? How do you take the law that says that an American is a copper-colored person, indigenous to the Americas, and now how do you become an American when you finish your revolutionary, or sorry, not your revolutionary war, your civil war? This, right, Englishmen on this side against Englishmen on that side. How do you get there? How do you change that in the same manner that the Bible's changed and all this stuff, or that the English is changed, or there's different versions, you don't even know what they are? How do you change that? Well, simple. If all you do is you have something called a Boston Tea Party. And you go on there and you take all these things that you scalped off of persons, including some persons even wearing the scalps of Native Americans, which is extremely disgusting, right? But you take all these things that you've scalped off persons, all these clothes that you've had, all this memorabilia that you've had over the years to say that you conquered these people and colonized them, and then you go on a boat. And you do some weird dances, and you put your hand against your mouth, right? And you say, we're now the Americans. None of that, by the way, sounds lawful or legal at all. None of it is sensical. But remember, we just talked a few nights ago. I think it was Thursday evening. Yeah, Thursday evening, a couple nights ago. We just talked about on our Real Talk sessions in the evening. We just talked about how a lot of stuff that y'all think are stuff to look up to is actually pretty vile and disgusting. And these persons are like, intermarried so much that they're making crazy decisions and leading, nations, and nobody knows about it, right? We didn't even go into the nasty. It was pretty disgusting. Some people were starting to say they were dry heaving, so I stopped, right? But it goes, the mental thought process of these persons at the time that we're saying we should look up to. Not the best persons to look up to. How you doing, Brother Lamar? I'm sorry, excuse me. How you doing? Shalom, Shabbat Shalom to everybody. How you doing, Jamal Jenkins? Thank you, everybody, for being on, for reposting, for sharing, for liking, any donations, etc. We appreciate you, right? How you doing, Michael? So persons change this stuff all the time. And when we allow this stuff to be changed, and somebody else to continue to tell you why it is, just like the Crusades. Hey, those brown and black people, that doesn't belong to them. We're the Christians, and Christians are the real persons who are there. Let's start telling everybody there's a New Testament. We're going to go over there and all the stuff. That's Old Testament. Let's knock them out. You have a whole crusade. It's easy to change somebody's inheritance, but it was never for them. And if it was never for them, then it's still not for them, because Yah has not changed yesterday, from today, from tomorrow. He's the same. And if he's the same, if it was your inheritance when he originally said it, it's still your inheritance today. All praises to the Most High Yah. Right? If Yah said it was my inheritance yesterday, come on. If he said it was my inheritance yesterday, it's my inheritance today. It's Salah. He doesn't change. Right? If it's mine, it's mine. Right? This ain't what's that old song? Was that Heavy D? Heavy D? Was yours is mine. Was mine is mine. Y'all remember that? Was yours is mine. Right? All that, right? No. That's not how this works. Was mine is mine. What Yahavah says is mine. It's still mine. Right? Because I belong to him. And if I belong to him, I'm a fellow heir of Yahavah. And if I'm a fellow heir of Christ, and that means whatever belongs to him. So anybody who's trying to tell me that what is my inheritance is not mine, you done lost your mind. This is our inheritance. How dare, watch this, not just how dare they, how dare we allow somebody to tell us that what our Father gave us is something that we should go ahead and say it belongs to somebody else. That's you being a traitor to your Father. I wish one of my children, I wish Solomon would. I wish Solomon would. I work hard, I work my behind off, I get all this stuff together, I make sure he got land, I do all this stuff, and then as soon as I pass away, he says, I'm gonna sell it to somebody. I wish he would. I know it's not gonna happen. I'm not trying to be blasphemous here. I'm just saying, I would hope, I would say, Yahavah, bring me back and let me whoop this boy real quick. He done lost his mind. Right? But come on, see, we here with this, because watch this, right? Yahavah is my shepherd. I shall not what? We was already here on that. You was already following. Look. Yahavah is my shepherd. I shall not what? I shall not want. Now the word want means what? It means to lack. I shall not lack. If I'm his sheep, if he's my shepherd, I've never lacked. Not as long as I've been behind him. Right? I don't have any desire outside of what he gives, because he provides all my needs according to his riches and glory. And if he owns all the cattle on 1,000 hills, then there's no hill that I'm going to go on in my lifetime. That's going to lack. Every hill's got green pastures. Every hill, or at least if you want to say every ravine down near somewhere, every brook, etc., has still waters. There's no such thing as lacking. The only reason why we think we're lacking is because you are coveting, wanting something that doesn't even belong to you. But if I get this inheritance, then everything that's in this provides all my needs. All praises. How you doing, Sister Ethel? Come on, somebody. This is our inheritance. How dare we allow somebody to tell us that what Yah gave us is not worthy of us making sure that we get everything he said? Right? Forgive me. I know this. We're not looking for the book of Kendrick here, but there's a song for those of you who follow Kendrick Lamar and stuff. There's a song on his GNX album called Man at the Garden. And it's an amazing song. Look, got some curse words in it, I'm gonna be honest, but it's an amazing album, right? Maybe one day I'll play the clean version, because I know sometimes I do that, but I can't do it too regularly, because I know people think I'm gonna be too secular in that, to show you something. It's a great song, right? You might want to get the clean version though, because especially at the end, and especially if you have babies too, right? You want to be careful that you guard yourself, and it can be a little intense. But he's basically saying that, hey, I did all these things. I came from the hood. I stayed genuine. I stayed true. even if we don't agree with his belief, I'm talking about what he said. I say true to my belief system. I do all this stuff I was supposed to, right? I deserve it all. He says, my mother deserves this for what she went through. She deserves it all. He says my daughter deserves to make sure she's protected and gets what she's supposed to, and my son should take it further than his father. He deserves it all. He talks about his wife and how they deserve it all. He talks about all these different things, and he says all these prayers. He said I did it the right way. I didn't murmur. I didn't complain. I didn't fuss people out. And even when I did, I came back. I apologized. I prayed for those who prayed against me, who plotted against me, right? All these different things. And you get to a place where he says, you know what? Tell me why. He ends the whole thing in the third verse with saying, tell me why you think you deserve the greatest of all time. It says a curse word, right? But he says that at the end. He says, he says, even in all the stuff, I finally got enough confidence in me to be like, hey, I'll work my behind to get to this position. How dare I let anybody come in here and tell me that what I got, a blessing that I got because of my hard work, is something that I don't deserve. Shabbat Shalom, y'all serving Isaac. Hello, Jess. Well, we already know what time it is with you. You're not even trying, So we're just gonna go ahead. Your trolling is limited, right? We don't get rid of that. That's not even worth responding to. How you doing, Cheddar? Shabbat Shalom to you, right? How you doing, brother Bradley? Set apart. Shalom, peace, peace, peace. How you doing, Sister Tia? Right? How you doing, G Bowser? Right? And that song, he says, I deserve it all, right? I deserve it all as far as I deserve anything that I want. No, he's saying I did things right. According to him, his standard, he's saying if I did things righteously, then why would I not deserve every righteous thing that Yah has for me? Right? That's what he's saying. He said, if I did everything righteously, which means in right lawful standing, right? Then if we did everything correct, why should we not get everything that's coming to us? And I apologize. I think somebody else came on here and you have like a username, user something, 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 something with all the numbers. I apologize. I meant to say shalom to you. I usually try to say welcome, especially if you become part of the community, follow, etc. I am sorry that I didn't catch you. So I'm looking now, I'm going back through. I apologize. I think I said welcome to the community to Owen George. Somebody else along the plane. Heart Songs, Shalom. I feel like it's been a long time no talk to. I apologize for missing you. I'm a human being, and we got multiple platforms running at the same time. So I'm trying my best to catch as many of you as possible. Right? But I'm just saying, I bring up that song as a reminder that there are many persons who have been told why they don't deserve what Yah has for them. And we look down on ourselves. And so what we've been learning about in these holy days is this is part of our nation. This is part of our nationality. This is an inheritance. It might have been, hold on, it was the user 667-13-689-49491. Might have been you, I'm not sure. It was somebody in there. Right? So we have this weird thing that's going on. Is it left fields? Hello, Shalom, how you doing? So we have this thing going on to where we take a lot of time out to continue to hinder ourselves, right? To continue to hinder ourselves. We take time out to continue to demean ourselves. We take time out to continue to learn from persons who are not trying to make sure that they teach you about who you are at all. And then when you begin to come into knowledge of it and begin to teach it, to live it, to proclaim it, to make it generational, now all of a sudden you're deemed a problem. Right now they try to make you a Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now they try to make you Rosewood, Florida. Now they try to make you I'm forgetting the North Carolina places, Wilmington, North Carolina. Now they try to make you Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Right now they try to make you nothing more than a park in New York. That used to be you. Now they try to make you Seneca Falls. Right now they try to make you whatever that place is in Georgia, forgive me, with water, where they dam that up. Because when you start to stand on your own 2 feet as far as your story without needing his story to validate who you are, you become a problem. Right? But here's how we should have always dealt with it. We tried our best to continue to do something called, and I know somebody's not going to like this, but just stick with me long enough. I promise you, it's going to make sense. Just roll with me, rock with me. we continue to do something called integrate, but we don't know what integration is. Integrate meant that whatever is theirs, we would become fellow heirs with them. Thank y'all for the love, right? That's what we believe. We thought, surely, if we just do everything they're doing, we'll become fellow heirs with whatever they do, whatever they say, right? So if the United States, right, if the United States Corporation, this is how we thought, this is what we were taught. If the United States Corporation allows persons who work hard, they'll get what they deserve, right? If we fight for the U.S., remember Andrew Jackson, even before the Civil War. Andrew Jackson, one of the worst towards us ever, but Andrew Jackson was like, hey, you know what? If y'all fight for me, I'll free you. And then made sure he put everybody back in prison. George Washington, right, could have won the Revolutionary War faster had slaves fought. But George Washington began to say what? George Washington said, you know what? We can't set that precedence, because if slaves fight for us and they learn how to fight and they learn how to use these weapons and they learn where our stuff is, then we'll, right, things will be a problem. But he said, like, you know, person said, no, just use them. Just tell them that we'll free them. He said, no, I won't do that. He made sure he sent all of them back to slavery rather than make sure that they won the fight that they were supposed to win, right? Having chattel slavery, right, exist was more important to him than making sure that his people survived. Right? That's what we're dealing with when we keep talking about this stuff. We keep talking about George Washington and making him this and making him that and acting like he deserves so much of our time and all this stuff. He was more concerned with continuing racism, white supremacy, right, than he was with making sure that the racist and white supremacists survive. You said my words bring destruction to untruth. I'm okay. I like that. Okay, I didn't know for sure. We get wildcats on here, so I didn't know where that was going. Thank you. Thank you for being right. But we don't discuss this as truth. We don't want to have honest dialogue. Like, that's truth. That the persons that we look up to were more concerned with keeping racism, white supremacy than making sure that racism, white supremacy survived. In the same wigs that we talked about before, they had the scabies and all that stuff, meaning that he probably bald-headed up underneath that wig, right? Having body lice and all that stuff or whatever. Cheating on his wife. His wife, by the way, was somebody who hated herself because his wife was brunette. If you know what brunette is in a la français, brunette doesn't mean brunette like you guys try to think now of so-called white woman with dark hair. No. Or, right, a brunette back then meant brownish. His wife was somebody who passed for white, and it was known. She was known as a brunette or a brunette. She was brownish. Right? How quickly we change things. Right? So you don't even know what your inheritance is. We don't even know how the stuff is. We don't even know. Hey, be careful about some of these folk, right? Not all skin folk is kinfolk. So now you're inheriting foolishness, trying to say that, oh yeah, everybody that looks like me believes what I believe. You said these were not the same times? What are not the same times? You're talking about this stuff doesn't exist today in any way, shape, or form? That's somebody who comes through and tells lies. Because if we can't tell the truth about it now, without somebody saying, well, these times aren't those times. Yeah, great. You're right, because I don't have to sit there. And a lot of you said, what? I'm a pastor. What am I preaching? I'm preaching about holy days and about truth and how people can mess stuff up and mix things up. And by the way, before you come in here with the reverse racism thing, I would suggest that you go ahead and listen long enough, because I'm one of the persons who speak like this that actually make sure that persons know that the Bible, even though it is written by persons who are the actual Israelites, it doesn't mean that somebody who doesn't look like that shouldn't be grafted and treated with respect as humanity, unlike others who have reversed it for so many years, right? I'm somebody that tries to bridge the gap, but, right? No, you come in, well, you're not, okay, I apologize. You're not necessarily asking questions. Your first thing was to come in and say, but you're wrong about this, and you're wrong about that, and these aren't these times. And you're coming in the midst of something that's been on since 8 a.m. New York time, and usually goes a lot longer. Today we're getting ready for our podcast, so we won't be on quite as long as usual. But I promise you, we have a whole bunch of stuff, and this is a whole series that's been going on for, what, a month? And we're finishing up tomorrow with Q&A. So if you'd like to come back and actually ask questions about it, if you're interested, you don't have to, of course, obviously, but if you're interested, you can come back then. But I got to kind of get ready to finish up a little bit because we have somebody else getting ready to preach on the podcast for us off of the ministerial staff. Yeah, I get it. I can tell you only logged in, but the questions that you're asking are questions, or not even questions, the statements that you're making are, oh yeah, that doesn't matter, blah, 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 that's not right. What I'm saying is like, maybe just give me a little bit of your time at your leisure. You know, if it's too much, you know, I understand, I guess. I don't really understand, but, you know, I comprehend, I guess. But, yeah, you know, but this is tough because, once again, we're talking about inheritance. And if somebody challenges your inheritance, if somebody challenges what you should inherit, matter of fact, one of the things that I don't think persons even get, as we talked about with the Willie Lynch letter and stuff, Willie Lynch made it a point to say that not only must so-called black persons be treated a certain way and be mistreated and be raised in reverse nature, but Willie Lynch also preached that you have to do that with the so-called white family, which means that so-called white families and so-called black families and everybody in between, whatever you want to call yourself, had to all be miseducated. How you doing, Nana? Thanks for being on. Right? We all had to be miseducated so that we would all inherit foolishness or all not inherit the greatness that we truly have, which is what the Most High wanted from the beginning, before all this foolishness came about, right? This is the reality, right? We had to suspend disbelief like you do in the movies. In order to make it through a movie, you got to suspend disbelief, or else you won't watch a movie if you don't suspend the belief that, hey, Luke Skywalker, you know, cannot use a force. You have to believe the force is real in order to watch episode 4, 5, and 6, episode 1, 2, 3, episode 7, 8, 9, and then all the little ancillary parts in between, right? How you doing, Brother Henry? You have to suspend disbelief. And if somebody comes and says, hey, I know you're watching the movie, you'd be upset, right? If somebody came in the middle of the movie and said, hey, I know everybody's enjoying this movie, but you know that what you're seeing on the screen isn't real. Everybody said, we know, but we paid for admission. We came in here to be lied to. That's why I'm here, right? I came here. I spent great money. I paid a bunch for popcorn. Maybe you went one of those places to where you can drink and you can have your popcorn and all this, and you can be sitting at the table and you can be laid all the way back in your chair, and you got the VIP section, and then somebody stopped the whole thing and says, I know you spent $250 in here for you and your family today, but I wanted you to know that's not real. And you're like, I know it's not real, but I just want to go ahead and make it through. It makes me feel great. It makes me feel nice. It makes me believe that I can do more. It's very motivational. It makes me believe I can be redeemed, like Darth Vader was. It makes me feel like I can go ahead and I can be special. You know, in the 70s, we weren't getting any characters like Billy D. Williams up there. Billy D. looking fly with the coiffed hair, you know, the permed hair and all that stuff. It makes me feel great. Why would you interrupt my movie? Why would you interrupt? I'm suspending my disbelief. I came here to watch Fast and Furious. I know nobody can fly in a car. Right? Right? I know, right? I know that. I came here to watch whatever the Hobbs and Shaw. I know nobody's strong enough to be like The Rock and be holding the helicopter with one hand of the chain and be holding on to the truck in the other. I know this, but don't tell me that it's not real, because I came here, I paid for it. I'm sold in. I'm invested in it. My life is invested in it. It's so somebody comes and says, hey, but you should pay attention. Don't pay attention to that. But that's what we're dealing with now. Person don't like it. You're a pastor? Yeah, why wouldn't I be a pastor? Don't suspend my disbelief. You know, and I remember that. See, because I was raised at a time when, you know, not that long ago, when I was going to churches and I got saved and all that, and I started going to churches about 2000, you know, and stuff like that, and I began to see what's going on, and I accepted my call in 2004, even though I had been preaching before then, but it wasn't in the Bible, it wasn't in the truth, if I'll be honest, and you know, but I accepted the call, and I've gone to the churches, and I was using my gift to play music, and I traveled around the world, and I've opened up in front of some big names, and I've been behind the curtain, and I've preached in front of thousands, I've preached in front of almost nobody, I preached in front of nobody before, right? But I was able to do all these different things. I'm sorry, am I buffering all over the place? Somebody said we're buffering. If we're buffering, let me know. And I guess I'll try to see if I can attach this to another signal, right? Okay, we are buffering. Okay, I got complete bars, but that means that it's not us. It's okay now? Okay, that's not us. Are we buffering? Can everybody see and hear me? Yes, no, maybe so? Can everybody see and hear me? Yes, no, maybe so? It's fine now? Okay, all right. So, and all the things that we're speaking on, I can talk really fast. Yes, I can. Right? Yes, now? Okay. I am buffering. I am? All right. It's all right. I'm sorry. I'm having to stop everything. Right, but it okay. So in all these different things that are going on, right? Persons don't want you to stop and say, hey, like that might not be so. That might not be correct. That might not be righteous. I know it's what you were raised with. I know it's what you were taught. I know it's what you think. I know it's what like somebody said it had to be, right? But could it be possible that you were taught an untruth and are on an untruth? Once again, we finished a series that we started on February 7th. We went all the way through. Somebody had to help me. Was it August or September maybe before we finally finished it? Called Badashat series, right? A lot of you don't even know that Badashat is the actual name of the word of what you call Genesis, right? And if you learn Badashat, it actually helps you more with the Trinity than what you ever would have learned. If you know the culture of what the persons actually wrote when they wrote it and keep the character of the word, because we don't cast spells, we don't spell words, we use character. Characters don't change. We're not supposed to change one jot or tittle according to the Sermon on the Mount, right? So if you, thank you. So if you are looking at these, right, and you learn Badashat and you go through the so-called book of Genesis correctly and learn what it is, Badashat or Genesis, even equated the Bible, which just means a set of books. So they didn't even put all the books in there and they didn't even put all the books in order. But that being said, if you use so-called Genesis or Badashat as in beginning, the first book of these scrolls, it's supposed to set a foundation for the rest. But many of you don't even know what a lot of this stuff is, right? Right? It's hard. It's difficult. Many of us don't know what this stuff actually means. It's true. Many of us have no clue as to what these items actually mean. Right? Many of us can't do, watch this. This is supposed to be our heritage, just like the holy days. Can you tell me what all these names mean? Adam or Adam? I'll use modern pronunciation. Adam, Seth, Enos, Canaan or Canaan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, Lamed, Noah, Shem, Arphaxad, Salah, Avda or Hebrew. I'm just going through a family tree. They all mean something, the names. But when you don't know, many of you don't even know. So if somebody would come in and say, hey, I know you've been reading Genesis your whole life, but do you actually know what these names mean? Somebody say, why are you interrupting? That doesn't matter. It's old. It doesn't matter. I'm on part this. I'm on New Testament only. Nobody's ever taught what your stuff is based off of. And the same thing for the holy days. This is why, once again, this is not for everybody. I've learned this. The Bible says this. You've never seen in the Bible that the word of Yah is for every person. That's what you want it to be, because somebody has made it so inclusive that it has no exclusivity. But the problem is for one to be holy, he must be exclusive. For one to be holy, she must be exclusive. It's not everybody's inheritance, it's ours. Those in the kingdom of heaven you inherit, but those in the world cannot, shan't not. All these persons who are going to come up to you tomorrow, or if you do a Seventh-day Adventist thing today, and continue to preach to you about how the word of Yah is for everybody, it cannot be. Ronald Reagan, we talked about Reaganomics last night. You know something Ronald Reagan used to say? He used to say that you cannot forget that it's one nation under God. And the second we forget that is and forget that democracy and God go together, that's when the community, that's when the country falls apart. And Christian nationalists love this. But the problem with this is that the Most High did not create the United States of America. And as we showed you earlier, your presidents are not Christian. Right? Especially if you're talking about the founding father presidents. And they were, by the way, 8 presidents before George Washington as well. But they were not Christian. By the way, those who wrote the Bible were not Christian either. Just in case you didn't know that, or you refuse to believe it. But they told you several times. As we said before, Thomas Jefferson literally has a book we've been dealing with in Patreon for SOC University. He literally has a book called the Jefferson Bible. When you read the introduction to the Jefferson Bible, it is admitted to you that what he did was take, even though he did it in 4 languages, so he was smart. But what he did was he took out a whole bunch of stuff that Christ did and then rewrote it in his image and said, this is what the parts of the Bible, or the parts of the so-called synoptic gospels, even though John is not part of the synoptic gospel or whatever, right? He said, this is what I like about Christ, and this is what I think makes him the person that he should be. And he presented it as that. And by the way, there's slave Bibles that are out at the same time. If you don't know what a slave Bible is, just do some research. You can go to the Bible Museum, especially the one in Washington, D.C. You can look it up for yourself, where persons literally took stuff out the Bible. A lot of you don't even know, a lot of slave revolts happened when they got their hands on actual Bibles. Because in their churches, the overseers, that's where you get your term overseer in churches, the overseers would sit there and they would go to services and they would listen to the pastor that was a chosen person to make sure that he was going to be the token, right? And make sure he was going to be the Sambo, right? So for example, Nat Turner. Nat Turner was a pastor. He was a pastor. That's what he did. Besides his slave work during the week, on Sundays, he was the pastor. And so he would preach the word. There would be an overseer that would represent Massa, and the overseer would sit in that big chair that you guys are used to seeing in those old school churches. And the overseer would sit there, and then Pastor Turner would get up there, and he would preach, and he would do this, and he would do all this stuff. And then after he finished preaching, this is what you guys see happen in your congregation. The overseer would come behind the pastor, and he would tell you what he said that was righteous and what was not. He would fix it, right? But what happens is one day, Nat Turner, who is looked up as a leader, so they put somebody who looks like you in charge so that you'll follow him. But it becomes dangerous because Nat Turner one day gets his hands on an actual Bible. So the slave Bible was missing stuff like Exodus. The slave Bible was missing stuff, like Thomas Jefferson would remove stuff as well, talking about, hey, not to make sure that you took stuff from your masters or all that stuff or whatever, even though that was rhetoric that they started putting in English later on, because in English, those were slave owners. That language didn't even exist, right? But nevertheless, he started seeing stuff in the Bible that said, oh, wait a minute. Moses left and Kemetic persons had to die for us to leave. Now, I'm not saying this is righteously how he should have done it, but that's where he gets the mindset, oh, maybe I'm supposed to be Moses. Revolution. Right? Or look at in Haiti, Toussaint Louverture. Right? They've already been planning to fight. They've started fighting against the French. And Toussaint Louverture is not even in Haiti. He's not even in Haiti. However, he picks up a Bible and he reads it and he goes, oh, maybe I'm Moses for my people. And he goes and he helps them to secure freedom. You have somebody like Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman, right? I told you we just recently went to some of the places that or the place where she grew up, where she was born, where she was injured and stuff like that. And she, same thing. Oh, maybe I'm supposed to be Moses. Reading the Word, reading the Bible, hits different for those that are in the situation of Deuteronomy 28, verses 15 through 68. It's not written for and to everybody. Not everybody gonna catch it. How you doing, Jose? Right? You said God is fair. Once again, so I'm talking about something culturally. No offense, no shade. But put it like this. God in Hebrew doesn't mean the maker of heaven and earth. God in Hebrew is Gemal Dalet, which means, and when you put those two characters together, that word for us means troop. And that's one of the sons of Israel. God or good, or Gaud in German, which is what you're speaking when you say that word. That means you can make whatever you want to worship. That's why there's a God of the water, and a God of the sky, and a God of the earth, right? Somebody might say you're a God. You're not, you know. If you're a God, then that means you have decided to worship yourself. Even that term where it says there's an uppercase G and do you not know you are gods, lowercase g, that's not even exactly how that was written, right? That's somebody from another culture who's rewritten that over time, right? But what you're actually using as far as God, that term always is in your Bible, Elohim or Elohim, right? And whenever you see Lord God, especially Lord, capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D, followed by capital G, lowercase o d, you'll discover that every time you see Lord God, it's always Yahavah Elohim, or as you'll say, you know, because of modern pronunciations of stuff, Jehovah Elohim, right? So, first of all, whenever somebody talks about God, we have to realize you're talking about a Germanic way of thought process that's not necessarily biblical, or at least the way of the persons who wrote the Bible in the first place. Number one, right? Secondly, even if we're talking about the Most High, let's just say the Most High, right? Even if we're talking about the Most High, the Bible is not written for everybody. The Bible is written for those who have, watch this, when Yahavah speaks in Matthew chapter 13, and he talks about there's the sower of the seed, right? And he does this all the way through Matthew 13. He does this all the way through Revelation chapter 2 and 3, right? Same thing, right? Watch this. When you see this, watch this, watch beloved, right? No, I'm running out of time, so I'm not going to hold you too much longer. How you doing, Brother Cole? Right? You said, but the 18 stood up for their freedom and what they believe in? Yeah. I'm not saying they did. Right? Or I'm not sure where I am. I'm sorry. But anyways, already thanks for being part of the community. So watch this, right? So if you want to be like Elohim, then you're following more like Mormon concepts, things of that nature. Persons don't know where these different beliefs come from, right? We just assume that because you've heard them all mixed together that they must be all the same. But anyways, getting back to that, I'm just going to stay on point and on target with this. Our response, so when you're talking about is the Bible written for everybody? Here's Christ, the Messiah, who we believe is a part of the triune being as we know as Elohim. Elohim literally means Father, Son, and Holy Spirit leading us in water, blood, and spirit. 3 in 1, leading 3 in 1. That's what that title Elohim or Elohim means, okay? So we'll let one of the three of Elohim tell us what he means when he says, you know, when he's asked a question. So he gives a parable. He gives a bunch of parables about the kingdom of heaven. Kingdom of heaven is like this, kingdom of heaven like this. We'll focus on the first one. Matthew chapter 13, right, verses 1 through about 8 or so is him basically talking to the people and giving them a parable. And the parable is there's a sower of a seed. The kingdom of heaven is like a sower of a seed, and some seed is thrown here, 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 here. Some seed is thrown, and the birds come and get it as soon as it's thrown up, and the sun scorches it. Some seed is thrown, and it grows up near thorns and thistles, and the weeds and stuff will choke it out. Some seed is thrown and is sown into ground. Some has a little bit of depth, but not enough to keep it, and so it ends up not being able to survive. But then there's some seed that's thrown and it grows 30, 60, and 100-fold. Okay? All right? After this, he says, let those that have an ear to hear, hear. Which means already we're excluding some persons. Everybody will hear it, or everybody will listen, but not everybody will shema. Not everybody will hear. There's a difference, right? Everybody might be listening, not everybody will hear. Now his disciples come by and question him about this, right? His disciples actually question him specifically about what he said. They come to him and they say, okay, why are you always speaking to them in parables? Right? Matthew chapter 13. Read this for yourself. If you're not reading it now, to double check me, read it for yourself. I think this is right, somewhere around Matthew 13, verse 10 or so. Right? They say, why are you always teaching them in parables? And this is his response. He doesn't try to beat around the bush. He says this. He says, because it is not for them to know the mysteries of the kingdom. There's exclusivity. He says, those who have an ear to hear, it's for them. He's not here to beat you in submission or develop it where you'll listen to or where you'll hear him. Many will listen, but few will hear. That's okay, right? In other words, you can have a whole congregation. You can have a congregation of 5,000, right? And while you're preaching, 50 of them might receive the word, right? 50 of them might receive the word. 4,950 may not. Or 4,950 may 50 may not. I don't know. But you can have persons who are receiving the same word. Some are listening for what they want. Some are hearing what the Most High says. Okay. So he says it's not for them to know the mysteries of the kingdom. He says, but it is for you. Exclusivity. Why? Now, what's the proximity? You are my disciples. You guys have been rocking with me, so to speak. You've been walking with me. You've been with me at the beginning of this thing. You guys have left your families. You guys really believe in this. There's certain truths that I'm saying that when I'm speaking in code, they don't comprehend it, but you do, right? But just in case you didn't get it because you're so close to me, now watch how exclusivity works here, right? Just in case you didn't get it, because I'm speaking in code and the code is too much, since you are close to me and you know my voice and you are close enough to me to ask follow-up questions, right? That nobody else can because you actually walk this with me, right? He says, let me go ahead and give you a little deeper interpretation. When I was talking about the sower of the seed in the kingdom of heaven, when I was talking about the seed, and by the way, the word in Hebrew for seed is also the same word for word. It's the word for seed that goes in the ground. It's also the word for seed that impregnates a woman. Same word, right? So he says, when I was talking about that seed, when I said it was thrown by the wayside and birds and sun scorched it, it means that it was spoken, the word was given to the heart, to the earth. However, persons couldn't receive it because the Satan is in too close proximity to them. In the position that they're in where it was sent, the sun scorches it and the birds see it. It doesn't even have time to hit because they cannot hear. Let those who have ears to hear, right? Even hear in their hearts. He says there's the next one. He says, when I talk about the one who was thrown out there and there's and it doesn't grow into the ground that deep. He said, that's when I give the word and somebody might listen and they might even want to really receive it, but they can't because basically they don't have the depth in their heart yet. Their heart is still not malleable enough. It's still too stony to where they can't actually get the word, right? So they basically are receiving it, but they're in a place to where their heart can't really get it. So the word, the seed, even though it began to manifest, whatever started to manifest, it began to die. They're not quite ready for it yet. He says, then there's another level, right, where I gave the word, right? And when I gave the word, it began to grow and everything looked fine, but it was growing around weeds and stuff, and the weeds came and choked the life. These are the vicissitudes of life. This is when we have so much stuff going on to where somebody might want to receive it, but because of the situation or because they're not really there or they're not planted in proximity, they're not living in a place to where all of a sudden, they can get what they actually need, right? They're living around a bunch of stuff, too much drama, whatever. It's difficult, and so you might see their journey at that moment get choked out. But he said, when it's in the right place, and it's at the right time, when the person has ears to hear, and they're not just listening for what they want, but they hear with their heart, he said, then it multiplies. It's 30, 60, and 100-fold. Let those who have ears to hear, hear. Right? That's talking about relationship. That's talking about persons that are exclusive. That's talking about you got to work out your own salvation. I'm not saying that once somebody's not coming in the kingdom or they're coming around, we're not going to do our best, but it is not my responsibility to walk around and say, hey, you're still doing evil. Hey, you're running away from the word. Hey, you know what? You're giving up because life challenges. I'll try my best to tell you, hang in there, hang in there, hang in there. But I used to be that pastor who used to cry in the middle of the night over everybody, and I still do to a certain degree, who used to cry over all these persons that wouldn't do what they were supposed to. That were out there still gangbanging, that was out there still mistreating their wives, that was out there still cheating, that was out there, they were this close, but if they would just get together, they were out there fighting all the time and doing this. Some persons 10 years. You can ask my wife, some persons like 10 years of my life chasing after persons and stuff like that, and finally I had to have a thought process that, hey, they have to want this. Your responsibility is to sow the seed. Throw the seed, throw the word out everywhere. Throw it everywhere that it goes. But their heart has to be ready for it. Right? And if their heart's not ready for it, that's not my responsibility to try and make their heart ready. I can't do that. Yahavah didn't say it was our responsibility or his responsibility in the parable. I can't force somebody to want to hear with their heart. I can't. I can. Are you right? I see. That's a want. That's a coveting. That's not even my responsibility. That's me thinking that I lack something. That's when you start to think, oh man, I'm not preaching enough. I'm not great enough. I can't do this. Well, man, I'm letting everybody down. No, no, no. I'm not supposed to to work out your salvation for you. That's what I mean when I say this word is not for everybody. If it's for you, or if you're going to do what you're supposed to do with it, you have a responsibility to take it. When you take your responsibility, then yeah, it's for you. If you decide that you're going to go against it, then it's not for you. Many are called, many are invited, few are chosen. Many are kletos, called, few are chosen, few are ekletos, few will do what they're supposed to do. And if you won't do what you're supposed to do, according to that same parable where many are called, few are chosen, when you read that whole parable, you'll see that many persons who you thought should have sat at the table with Christ to celebrate his coming are going to be the persons who were told, get away from me, you workers of iniquity. You said, how do you soften your own ground? You go through a process. Right now, this is a process that many Israelites would have known. By the way, I'm pretty much out of time. We got to get ready to go to the podcast. So I'm gonna put the podcast information up when we get ready to do our shout out. We got to get ready to go, right? Like I was saying, we don't have as much time as we normally do. But this is our inheritance, right? When we're doing this series, this is our inheritance. We'll have Q&A about holy days specifically tomorrow. If we don't get enough holy day questions, then we'll try to see about other ones. But we'll go into we have Q&A to finish our holy day series tomorrow. So prayerfully, if you're able to join us between 8 a.m. and 11, maybe 11:30ish a.m. New York time tomorrow, we'll try to get to you ASAP, and we look forward to start seeing persons start rolling in tomorrow. But most of us, just about all of us are going to start rolling in on Monday, and we'll see you coming in throughout the next 8 days, starting October 6th. Thank you for being with us. But so we'll put the information up for the podcast real quick, and we'll do a quick shout out. Those of you who know how the shout out works, feel free to go ahead and come on. If you want to join us for the shout out, you got to be on TikTok, by the way. So thank you for being on. If you came over from IG, Clapper, YouTube, if you're on TikTok, Facebook, we appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Once again, feel free to come on and join us. Come over and join us when we get ready for our shout out in just a little bit. Just a little bit. But yeah, so the question was asked real quick. I got to be real quick with the answer today because of time, for sake of time. So long story short, if you're talking about softening the heart, right? You're talking about farming. And farming, softening the heart, first of all, you got to have spirit, or what we would talk about water, right? Water softens the ground, right? And that's something that you have to develop. Also, too, when you're talking about softening of one's ground or whatever, being around, even if your ground hasn't been tilled yet, if you're next to ground that's been tilled, you kind of soften up automatic, right? Also, there has to be aeration, there has to be oxygen, there has to be breath. In Hebrew, the word breath is talking about Holy Spirit, right? So when Yahavah is giving these parables, they're much deeper than what we think, and persons would have caught a lot of this stuff more quickly than we might believe, simply because they're able to they would have been able to basically catch all these things that were going on because they live this culture. So when he's talking about planting, growing, sowing seed, etc., these are things that they would have known, right? But long story short, even doing something like this, getting into your word, praying, fasting, seeking, getting the persons who know things, having somebody that holds you accountable, accountability partners, etc., things like that can help you. I apologize, I can't go much deeper than that, but that's all we got time for today. So much love to everybody. I appreciate you. Shabbat Shalom. If you want to join us for the podcast, so be it. Once again, there was somebody that asked for information about Feast of Tabernacles, who said that they want to come and see exactly where we're going to be. I sent a DM to you. I was trying to double check the DM, but I sent you a number that you could text so that we can go ahead and get you that info. We started sending out messages to everybody, for everybody who's coming in person. Of course, if you're coming virtually, we'll still be doing the live session and everything throughout. Matter of fact, we're doing it even more because every day, according to Nehemiah chapter 8, verses 13 through 18, we're supposed to do it every single day. So we'll have the word every day and every evening, as much as we can in the evenings on Tuesday and Wednesday, but we should have it every day and every evening. Except for maybe Sunday, we won't do it in the evening. But outside of that, and we'll have prayer every rising on Zoom. So we're looking forward to a lot of great things that the Most High has for us. But thank you all for being on. I appreciate you. If you want to listen to the shout out and be part of it, if you'd like to join us on the podcast, we have information in the description if you're listening, or you can just look at what's going to be on screen in front of you as the music is playing. And once the music begins to play, if you want to come over to TikTok and join in for the shout out and participate, hopefully you are, and hopefully it blesses you. Hopefully you enjoy the music. So thank you everybody again. We appreciate you. We give our honor and praise to the Most High. We give our praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Alma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. And as always, beloved, remember that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, take care. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.